Good morning. Welcome to First Parish in Framingham. I'm Jan Miller. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as one of the co-chairs of your Board of Assessors alongside Heather Cilio. First Parish in Framingham is a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We celebrate and welcome people of all ages, races, gender identities, sexual orientations, abilities, socioeconomic statuses, or beliefs. We welcome you here in the meeting house or on Zoom or wherever and whenever you may be watching this service in the future. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion that honors wisdom from many sources. We keep our minds open to the religious questions people have pondered across vast times and places. Please be sure to read the announcements in the order of service. Immediately following worship, you're invited to join us for coffee hour in Scott Hall, just across the courtyard. And please take a moment to turn your phones or other devices to their quietest settings. While beeps and buzzes can be distracting, we welcome your human noises, cooing, babbling, laughter, and all. We especially love the sound of your singing, so please join in. Since 1701, people have gathered as this community to rest or recharge, to be challenged or affirmed. Those people are like you. You belong here, maybe only for the next hour, but we hope for longer. We're happy to have you with us. I now invite you to take a deep breath in and out. Continue to take a few more deep breaths and to begin to release whatever you need to let go of to be more fully present to yourself, one another, and the sacred in this time and place. A flame within a chalice is a primary symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition, to symbolize the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. It is our tradition to begin our worship by kindling the flame of our chalice. I share these words from the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum, who serves our congregation in Stowe, Massachusetts. As we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other. Please rise in body or spirit to sing hymn 159, This Is My Song. Please remain standing as we join our voices in both our sung and spoken affirmations. The lyrics are in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve all life with compassion, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God. Please be seated. I'm good.
Good morning. Okay, I made the mistake and put on the microphone before I took off the mask. My name is Lauren Strauss. I'm the Director of Religious Exploration here. I use she, her pronouns, and I say with you all, good morning and welcome to church. All right, so I had a plan this morning. I have this cool lesson about the principles, and I have blocks, and they make an arch, and it's so cool. And then I went and I looked at my blocks, and I pulled out the block that is the foundation block for that lesson, and I realized it's full of holes. And then I was really disappointed. And then I realized that there's a lesson here too, because I wonder where these holes came from. Excuse me, I have to do just a teeny bit of setup. Because they're labeled, these holes. So, okay, I'm gonna find out what's in these holes. All right. This one says, white supremacy culture. This one says, ableism. And I got homophobia. And what's this? Oh, patriarchy. And I also have, let's see. Nope, this is the right one. Oh yeah, transphobia. Those are big and icky and like society's borer beetles, digging holes in everything. But you know, Unitarian Universalism is a pretty welcoming and inclusive religion. So I have to wonder, this is the foundation for my lessons on the 7 principles. How did these holes get so big here? I'm gonna go back into the hole that was for transphobia, because it's got something else in it. Ooh. I don't even like to talk about this one. This one says, that time you misgendered your friend. Okay. So a number of years ago, one of my friends decided to start using they, them pronouns. I had never met a person before who wanted to use they, them pronouns. It felt really weird and awkward for me, but I thought, my friend lives in a whole other state. This is not going to affect me that much. So I won't have to worry about it. But just a few weeks later, I got invited to their house for an event. And I was so worried that I was going to get it wrong. And then guess what? I got it wrong. The minute the wrong pronoun came flying out of my mouth, I felt this whole array of uncomfortable feelings. It was like shame, this wash of shame. And I literally froze in place, and my face turned red, and I did the thing where I covered my face up. I was so ashamed. Getting it wrong felt bad in my whole body. And a part of me just wanted to pretend like it never happened, right? Maybe they didn't notice. But you know what happens if you do that? The hole gets bigger. Because everybody ignored it, you feel like now you have permission to keep making the mistake because they didn't care. So you don't try as hard next time. And the person who got hurt keeps getting hurt. Or here's another one you can try. You can try profuse apology. Oh my gosh, I know what your right pronouns are, but it's just so hard. Please forgive me. Oh my goodness, you have to forgive. Okay, so that actually puts the person who just got hurt into the position of having to take care of you. Not good. The hole just got bigger. But there is a way to stop these holes from getting bigger, and maybe even to start filling in some of the damage. May I introduce to you 8th principle duct tape. So the 8th principle calls us to show by our actions that we mean to dismantle racism and all other oppressions. So if I misgender my friend and realize it, or someone gently corrects me, the 8th principle asks me to correct myself and then move on. It looks like this. Sorry, they. And then I go on with my sentence. It shows that I not only recognize my mistake, but that I will in good faith try not to repeat it. After that situation with my friend, I drove around a lot talking to myself, because there's nobody else in the car to see me, out loud about my friend, practicing using their right pronouns. Does that mean that I've never misgendered them again? No. Nope. I've messed up several times since then. But now, instead of that feeling of shame and trying to hide my mistake, I correct myself and I move on. And the hole gets smaller and smaller, patched up by my commitment to love people the way they want to be loved. So this Swiss cheese foundation is full of all kinds of holes, more than we ever would have realized like 5 or 10 years ago. And as more people feel comfortable speaking up about the ways that they want to be loved, we discover more holes that were already there under the surface. Feeling guilt and shame about the holes doesn't make them go away. Adopting the 8th principle, like we're going to do, I hope, next week, we have a vote coming, that won't fix it either, unless we also change our behavior. The 8th principle isn't magic, it's a commitment. It asks us to help each other notice the holes, change our behavior that creates the holes, and even begin to repair them. Thank you. And now I would love it if y'all would sing me and the children and parents and teachers to religious exploration.
I'm the Reverend Aaron Stockwell-Wiseman. I use he, him pronouns, and it is my honor to serve as your senior minister. In our community, there is great joy and there is also great sorrow. We set aside this time because we know that joy shared is joy expanded, and sorrow shared can feel as though someone is lifting a burden. Remember, you can always share your joys or sorrows in the book at the back of the sanctuary. It looks exactly like this, or you can submit them online each week. Interspersed with our sharing, we sing hymn 1002, Comfort Me. We sing so that we lift up the things which are deepest on our hearts, and also so that you might have a song to sing whenever you need comfort. We begin with our sorrows. This sorrow from Robin, who writes, I'm very sad that we missed the whole azalea flowering season this year. Could have been the month-long drought last summer. We're not being cold enough this winter, which caused the buds not to have formed. It was a lot of beautiful color to have been missed. Let us now sing the first verse of Comfort Me. The lyric is, Comfort Me. And now the joys of our congregation. This from Myrna H., who writes, after a 2-hour-long ride, I was delighted to be warmly greeted by Reverend Aaron and Sarah. When I looked into the parish hall, I could hardly wait to connect with all those wonderful faces. I was constantly aware of how much I miss First Parish. I felt at home. It was a beautiful day as I nibbled on tasty food. We shared tales and had many a laugh and fun. The day flew by and I was one of the last to leave with a few hangers on. I talked all the way home and shared it with my precious daughter, Sharon. This from Vanessa P., who writes that she graduated from Framingham State after passing a difficult comprehensive exam that she was dreading for several years. She feels very relieved to finally be an alumna of Framingham State. A joy thanking Robin for the beautiful plants and flowers on our grounds. And this joy from Ben L., who writes, my grandfather, whose birthday is on Tuesday, my family will be celebrating it tomorrow, May 29th. Let us now sing the second verse. The lyric is, Sing with me. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. And as always, we light one final candle for all of the joys and concerns and sorrows which remain unspoken, though deeply held in our hearts. We now sing the final, or the third verse. The lyric is "Speak for me." I invite you to return to that breath in and out that we asked you to focus on at the beginning of our time together. I invite you too to feel the ground beneath you that supports you and all of the other supports that we have in our lives. Literal supports, beds, chairs, pews, metaphorical ones which keep us upright, community, friends, and family. O Spirit of life and love, named and unnamed, seen in flowers bursting forth in bloom, seen too in molecules and atoms, that Spirit of life calls us by our true first name, which is beloved, heard too in community. We give thanks this day for all of the joys that we bring, for milestones, for rites of passage, for the flowers that bloom about our feet. We give thanks too for this community, for the leaders and the staff. We know too that in our midst there are people living with pain, people recovering from illness and surgery, those who are mourning the loss of loved ones. Let us reach out, let us have the courage to lend a helping hand. And we know too that in our world, oppression exists. And yet we also know that the arc of the universe bends towards justice. But it needs our help too. And from time to time we slip up, we make mistakes. Our humanity shows a little bit too much. May we be comforted by the fact that we are loved, not in spite of these imperfections, but because of them. And when we put distance between ourselves, our authentic selves, and perhaps the mystery beyond all understanding, there is always room, always time to move closer because of that sacred breath. I say these words and do all things for love's sake. Today we also pause to remember the names of all those who have died while serving in our nation's military. The list according to the census is long, more than 1 million names. As best as I can tell, these are the names of American soldiers who've been killed since Memorial Day 2022. This year, most of these names were in training accidents. These deaths were in training exercises. And if I mispronounce a name, we can trust that those who knew them best know how to say their names. Jason Reed Haven, Christopher Robert Hermano, Kyle D. McKenna, Stuart Dwayne Waymont, Jeffrey Barnes, Emily Marie Eve Bolanos, Zachary Esparza, Isaac John Gayo, Josh Gore, Aaron Healy, Taylor Mitchell, Rustin Smith, David Salinas Jr. If you have names of others who have died in the U.S. military, I invite you now to speak those names out loud. May we strive for a world that is peaceful and just. We will continue with our quiet contemplation for one more minute. May you feel the love of this community from wherever you are. May the peace and the stillness and the grounding that we have felt here carry us through the coming week.
Our offering invitation words this morning come from our former ministerial intern, Michael Hall. As we approach the time for our offering, give what you will for the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to people you will never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. The offering will now be gratefully received. That was beautiful. Thank you, Ben and all. Our reading this morning by Heidi Pribe is entitled, "To love someone long-term is to attend 1,000 funerals of the people they used to be. The people they're too exhausted to be any longer. The people they don't recognize inside themselves anymore. The people they grew out of, the people they never ended up growing into. We so badly want the people we love to get their spark back when it burns out, to become speedily found when they are lost. But it is not our job to hold anyone accountable to the people they used to be. It's our job to travel with them between each version and to honor what emerges along the way. Sometimes it will be an even more luminescent flame. Sometimes it will be a flicker that disappears and temporarily floods the room with a perfect and necessary darkness.
Our faith tradition is a covenantal faith, not a creedal faith. We don't require new members who wish to join to say that they believe certain things. We instead agree on what we do in this world, deeds, not creeds, behavior, not belief. Our faith tradition is also a living tradition. I don't know who first said it that way, but it is in the vernacular of our tradition around General Assembly, where we have the service of the living tradition to recognize rites of passage for religious professionals, the endings, continuing education, retirements, and deaths. We also literally sing out of it each morning when we raise the gray hymnal singing the living tradition. As Unitarian Universalists, we commit to being a part of this living tradition. We commit to keep some things the same, the essentials, the essence, the core of who we are. We also commit to being open to newness, innovation, evolution, and repair. James Luther Adams, a Unitarian Universalist theologian of the last century, wrote that he believed that in Unitarian Universalism there are 5 smooth stones of religious liberalism. And it is a beautiful description of our faith tradition that makes my hair stand up on end whenever I read it. The words so clear, so descriptive of what we do. 3 of these stones feel relevant to our discussion today. Adams writes that religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct one's effort towards the establishment of a just and loving community. It is this which makes the role of the prophet central and indispensable in liberal religion. We affirm the place of justice. Perhaps that is the thing that remains true, that remains at the center of our tradition. In our Unitarian Universalist views of justice, we never consider taking away the rights of people. Rather, over the last 6 decades, our circles and our understandings of injustice and oppression have gotten wider and more inclusive. This makes sense because the first stone of religious liberalism depends on the principle that revelation is continuous. Our religious tradition is a living tradition because we are always learning new truths. We'll always be growing. The Unitarianism and Universalism of the past looks very different than our current expressions of Unitarian Universalism. And I hope that our faith over the next 50 years continues to evolve, that we will, if we are still breathing and on this plane, say much has changed and it is good. The final smooth stone of James Luther Adams that applies today is we deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. Good things don't just happen. People make them happen. You know that part of the time for contemplation that I sometimes remember to say when I say that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice, but it depends on our work as well? That is about denying immaculate conception of virtue and affirming that if we are to see justice in our world, we must be active participants in that project. And I know that as Unitarian Universalist congregations, we affirm and promote 7 principles, and perhaps next week in our congregation, we will also commit to an 8th principle. All of this too is in flux as well. Our denomination is considering giant revisions to Article 2, the section where our values live in our bylaws. Regardless, if Article 2 does get passed this year, it needs to still pass the following year. Each value in that statement has a declaration and a covenant, what we are and what we will do because of what we are. If we have a commitment to core values, to change and repair, what then does it mean to be a Unitarian Universalist? What do we commit to do in each one of them? How will we know that we are affirming and promoting them? The inherent worth and dignity of every person. When we make our commitment to affirm and promote this principle, we commit to revere and respect humanity with all of the quirks and flaws, the beauty and the scars. We seek to have communities where no one is left out of the circle who wishes to abide by that principle as well. It is the first principle and is perhaps the one that is the most complicated to live. If we each search our hearts, we can find times where we excluded others or where we ourselves were excluded. Oftentimes, too, we affirm everyone else's inherent worth and dignity, and we put ourselves down. We fail to remember the beautiful gift that we ourselves are. Perhaps the commitment here is to constantly expand the circle of our hearts. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Now, in our second principle, the scope expands. We're not talking just about the inherent worth and dignity of someone else, but we're then committing to doing something about it. It speaks about a collective responsibility. In the second principle, we commit to the inherent worth and dignity of the human system, the human society, to go high when the other side goes low. The commitment here is to make sure that the operating systems of our congregations, communities, and countries are bug-free, perhaps, but also that it is built on a just and loving community. Acceptance of one another, an encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. A third principle commitment here means that we commit to always being a work in progress. We may be able to see the lines of the previous picture on the canvas, but our beliefs are always evolving. That is, there is a commitment to revision. Thank goodness that I do not believe exactly what I believed 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. The theological underpinning here from Adams is that revelation is unsealed or is continuous. How wonderful is it that we have a commitment to growth in our principles? May we never stay static. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This fourth principle is a commitment, a mandate to find and search for truth and meaning. That's the free part. But then when we decide that we have finally found a truth and meaning, we pull it out and compare it to the truth that other people have found. When we find that the truth aligns, great. However, when we find that a deeply held truth causes friction or causes harm, we listen to the harm that we have caused and then consider changing our truth. That's the responsible part. As my colleague, the Reverend Paige Getty, explains, as free and responsible religious seekers, we recognize that we are privileged to be free, to have resources to pursue life beyond mere survival, to continually search for truth and meaning, to exist beyond bonds of dogma and oppression, and to wrestle freely with truth and meaning as they evolve. This privilege calls us not to be isolated and self-centered, she writes, believing that our single perspective trumps all others, but rather to be humble, to be open to the great mysteries of truth and understanding that life offers. And those mysteries may speak to us through our own intuition and experience, but also through tradition, community conflict, nature, and relationships. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. A commitment to our fifth principle means that we repair the fissures and tears that are forming in the tapestry of our nation's democracy. We see this too in the beautiful and somewhat tedious proceedings at our denomination's General Assembly. We see this too in the careful deliberation that we have delegated to our denomination's Board of Trustees. We see this in the proceedings at our annual meeting, as well as in the authority that you bestow to the Board of Assessors. We see this in the fact that ministers are placed in congregations not by the authority of a bishop or a cardinal, but rather by a call of the congregation. Beautiful and democratic. It is unique for a religious body to note a commitment to a political method. It wasn't in the previous version of our bylaws, nor was it in the foundational documents of the American Unitarian Association, nor the Universalist Church of America. Earl Holt, a UU minister currently in his retirement in Arizona, explains that the right of conscience came from the Liberty Clause that we inherited from the Universalist side of the family. Holt explains each version of this universal declaration of faith, creedal in form, enunciated the beliefs of the church as a whole. But the Liberty Cause anticipated and made allowance for a variety of individual interpretations, stating that neither this nor any other statement shall be imposed as a creedal test, provided that the faith thus indicated be professed. The ambiguity of this language must be acknowledged, but the intent to allow latitude is clear. Holt points out that democracy preserves the individual conscience. He says the principles are properly understood, and like similar formulations of the past, it is descriptive, not prescriptive, suggestive, not authoritative. Perhaps the most important thing to remember is that there is no external authority in our lives, no creed, no church. The only authority is the voice that speaks deep within us all. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, the commitment in this principle is to make sure that the many communities and countries strive for peace, not just in the next lifetime, but in this. It is a commitment that I believe undergirds all Memorial Day celebrations. Yes, we have fought hard for freedom. We mourn the loss of those who have died. We will remember their sacrifice. And let us do everything possible to ensure that another soldier does not have to die from an enemy's bullets or in preparation for war. Since the beginning of our denomination, there has been a Unitarian Universalist United Nations office. It is one of 3 continent-wide associate member organizations, along with the UU Service Committee and the UU Women's Federation. Commitments to this principle require us to remember that all citizens are our kin, and what impacts one of us impacts us all. We remember that there is a cost to freedom buried in the ground. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Commitments to the 7th principle remind us that we are all interconnected. It is what Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of when he said, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one of us directly affects all indirectly." It is also, of course, where our commitment to making sure that our environment stays healthy and that the ecosystems of the earth continue to function. And now we get to the 8th principle, where we commit to this process of journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, beloved, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in our lifetime, in ourselves and our institutions. A bit long, yes. But when you are working to get something to be discussed at the national level, you know that it will be revised. And it is better to have all the words out there and all of the parties discussing the same words when it gets to the denominational level. If we truly lived into our previous 7 principles, we would not need this principle. The principles are internal-facing documents telling what congregations need to do within themselves and also explaining the work of our denomination. To accountably dismantle racism means that we understand that when we cause harm, we seek to repair and rebuild relationships because there is a truth that diverse, multicultural, beloved communities are beautiful and joyful places to live in. While there were earlier harms done, such as when in the early part of our denomination's history and slightly before, women were pushed out as ministers and leaders were harmed, the Unitarian Universalists can boast that the 7 principles as we have them now were born out of the women's movement in our denomination. We can boast that the majority of Unitarian Universalist ministers are women. Through the effectiveness of the Welcoming Congregation program and other efforts, we have a good representation of the LGBTQ community. However, the 2 worst crises in our denomination's history since 1961, the Black empowerment controversy in the 1960s and the hiring crisis in our denomination over inclusive hiring practices in 2017, are related to race. The 8th principle is a commitment to repair. Because we are committed to continuous revelation, we too can commit to repair when harms have been done. We are also called to consider how to dismantle racism in our communities. And this morning and many mornings, my heart continues to break for the unspeakable cruelty that is being inflicted on transgender beloved people in so many states of our union. I feel sick at heart when I read about the choices that parents are having to make to make sure that their transgender children are safe. I feel sick at heart when I hear about the plans that congregations are having to make to ensure that transgender people are safe and not killed by legislation. This too, dismantling violent transphobia and homophobia, feels like important work that we are called to do. It is another oppression. It is infringing on the worth and dignity of others. A child or an adult getting to live their best and authentic life, regardless of their gender expression or identity, does absolutely nothing to diminish my life. Indeed, it brings me joy when other people are joyful. My friends gathered here, to be a Unitarian Universalist is a commitment to a living tradition, to hold truths and values, and to always pay attention to where new understandings are, to listen to where revelation is constantly unfolding, to be a Unitarian Universalist is to attend to the work of repair, to attend to the work that Heidi Priebe invites us to do in the poem we heard before the sermon that I will again share. To love someone long-term is to attend 1,000 funerals of the people they used to be, the people they're too exhausted to be any longer, the people they don't recognize inside themselves anymore, the people they grew out of, the people they never ended up growing into. We want so badly the people we love to get their spark back when it burns out, to become speedily found when they are lost, but it is not our job to hold anyone accountable to the people they used to be. It is our job to travel with them between each version and to honor what emerges along the way. Sometimes it will be even more luminescent flame. Sometimes it will flicker. It will be a flicker that disappears and temporarily floods the room with a perfect and necessary darkness. That someone that we love may be a partner, a friend, the people in our community, or ourselves. May we attend to that love. May it be so, and amen. We will now sing our final hymn, which is number 155, Circle Round for Freedom, and we're going to sing it through twice. now we extinguish our chalice until we are together again. May we hold the light always. May the light of this community hold us always. So as we leave this friendly place, let us take the light of love out into the world and use it to brighten our pathways. And when we need to rest or recharge, be challenged or affirmed, may that light guide us safely back. May we hold the light always, and the light hold us always. Go in peace, go in love. Amen.